Okay, so this video, I haven't watched this yet, but it's been making the rounds. This video is called How Do Dems Win Back Young Men? And these two people are going to try to explain that to us. These two people here, Micah Irfan and Olivia Juliana. Now, right off the bat, I mean, just right off the bat here, I don't think that's going to work out. I don't think that if this is who the Democratic Party, these two folks here, think is going to convince conservative young men to embrace liberal ideology, they're insane. I mean, they're absolutely insane. These are not the people that are going to do that. And I know this because I can see them. I can literally see them right in front of me. I don't even think we really need to click play on this to know that. But we're going to click play, even though it's against my better judgment. We're going to click play, and I'm going to hate this so much. We are going to change the stream title. Real quick. And all right. Against all my better judgments, here we go again with this video. Oh boy. All right. How do Dems win back young men, featuring Olivia Juliana and Micah, whatever his name is. Micah Irfan. I'm probably saying that wrong, but here we go. Here goes nothing.
Olivia writes a Substack, which probably, statistically speaking, like 89% of y'all read already.
Nope. No idea what that's supposed to mean. Oh, okay. She put it on the screen. A new perspective. I read about politics, power, and the fight for our future. Unfiltered and unapologetic. I assume she's unapologetic when she's wrong. I've seen the system up close. Now I'm bringing you the truth behind the headlines and the battles that matter. No fluff, no silence, just the real story. Is that her in the middle? They think she's gonna get young men to come back? I mean, she's sitting with Kamala and some other lady. There is no way. Okay. Let's hear what she has to say. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. The tweets I've seen would suggest to me that I'm not wrong, but maybe I am. I hope I'm wrong.
Olivia, I want you to talk about that Substack, and I also want you to talk about one of the newer articles that you wrote about why men drifted right in the previous election. I consider myself a resident expert on this because I am a man, so I feel like
that would not make you an expert on this necessarily. Definitely not.
We could have an interesting conversation on the conclusions you reach in that article.
Yeah, so my Substack it's called A New Perspective, oliviajuliana.substack.com, and we're actually very close to hitting 100,000 subscribers on Substack. I'm very excited. But I write a lot about politics, and I hate that all these newsletters are the same. There's so many Substacks that you get on, and they're all telling you the same stuff. I don't want to do that. I want to give you a new perspective on the political issues that are going on. And so I keep
That is
seeing
what you titled it.
people talk about young men in the 2020 cycle or in the 2024 cycle, and they keep saying like, well, it's because like they're not getting laid enough.
No, 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 that's not it. But I think she's satiring that opinion, so.
And they feel judged, and or alternatively,
they do feel judged. That's for damn sure. They definitely feel judged.
Well, they're just racist and they hate women. So like,
that's not true. That is not why.
Like it's really, I see these takes coming out from both sides of the party wing, I would say. And I just think that all of that is wrong. I think all of it is wrong.
Okay, so most of that is wrong. They do feel judged, though. That is correct. Young men absolutely feel judged by society, and they feel like they're being judged for things that they didn't do. And whether that's true or not is wholly irrelevant, because they feel like it's for things that they didn't do. And that's why they're moving to, that's one of the reasons why they're moving to the right, for sure. So while yes, those other two things were incorrect, there was one that was correct. They do feel judged. Wi-Fi girl looks like that Gorlock trans person from from whatever. Yeah, a little bit. I think Gorlock's bigger.
And so I wrote this piece called The Politics of Getting Laid and Preachy Females. And
what?
Piece called The Politics of Getting Laid and Preachy Females.
The Politics of Getting Laid and Preachy Females. You should absolutely not have written that.
And I really dive into what I actually perceive it to be. And shocker, it's all economic anxiety. I think the Democrats have a really bad problem of every time we message to young men, we frame it in a way that is wrapped up.
No, nuh-uh. It's not economic anxiety. That's why some younger millennials and Gen Xers and above, that's why some of them are moving to the right a little bit. That is not why Gen Z is moving to the right. She is completely off base there.
In the same principles that we critique. We critique the patriarchy. We critique the way that men have higher hierarchy and power structures. And then we message to them as if not only is that the reality, but that they have to continue to be like that. So the example I use in the article is the issue of abortion. When we message to young men on abortion, or men in general, we do it from the position of, well, real men protect women. And if you
that is, but that is not what you do at all. That's not what you do at all. That is not how you do that. That is categorically not how Democrats reach young men on abortion. That's not it at all. The abortion argument has nothing to do with that, and it never has. It's when you value the beginning of the other life. That has nothing to do with protecting women. That is not why liberals, or that is not why pro-choice people are pro-choice. It's just not true at all.
You care about the women in your life, you should be pro-choice. And that might be true. That is true.
That is not true. That is not how that works at all. That's not even... That would never be brought up in an actual debate about this topic, ever. That would never be brought up.
But we don't come at it from the approach of this is the reality that young men face about that issue. Because it's entirely possible that
What reality? You just didn't say anything.
a young woman in college gets pregnant unexpectedly, and that could upend her life if she doesn't have access to abortion care. But it's
Oh my God. She's never going to get anywhere. She's never going to get anywhere, ever, anywhere. I mean, just right off the bat, the aesthetic of these two people, no conservative is going to listen to them at all, ever. But let's say they had the perfect aesthetic and vibe going on. Conservatives, or because pro-life, pro-choice is not a strictly divided conservative liberal issue at all. There are pro-choice conservatives, there are pro-life liberals, 100%. The pro-life conservative men do not even remotely consider that their lives would be upturned because of a woman's pregnancy. That is not how they view the issue at all. Like at all. Ugh, I said we weren't going to do abortion tonight, but apparently we are.
It's also entirely true that the young guy who gets her pregnant, now he's on the hook to not only take care of this child that could be him, that could be coming into the world, but also to take care now of the mother of his child.
Yeah, that's wow. That is, thank you for explaining the birds and the bees to us. Oh my God. This can't be this. They're doomed. They're doomed. They're doomed. They're doomed probably forever. They're just we're doomed at this point.
And I think that it would be so much easier if we just understood that the problems we're having with young men shifting to the right, it's not because they don't agree with us on the policy. They do agree with us on the policy. It's because
no, they don't agree with you on some policies. They don't agree with you, but most of it is like the cultural shift and the wacky vibes. Like that's what it mostly is. And you're doing the weird vibes now. You're doing them right now. Your complete misunderstanding of why people are interested in certain topics or issues.
Feel like we don't understand the struggles they're facing.
You don't. You just highlighted that. You do not understand.
Actual struggles, not the perceived struggles of the masculinity crisis or whatever it is.
That's not a perceived struggle. That's not a perceived struggle at all. Everyone knows this. There is a masculinity and testosterone crisis among young men. They're not growing into men properly. Everyone knows this. How do you not know this? This isn't questioned. This isn't questioned at all. This is not perceived. What do you mean?
Actual struggles. And instead, we just kind of want to blame them for all of our problems.
Right.
That is true. The last handful of years, the left has just kind of been blaming particularly conservative, straight white men for everything, but not just white men, actually. It's really been all men. There is a particular type of hatred for that specific grouping of men, but it's all men at this point. I mean, that is true. That's true. She isn't understanding the connection there at all, but
I think there's a lot of that I just fully agree with. I mean, we just don't message to men, right? As like,
There's a lot of that I fully agree with. And then he says a sentence that's technically correct. We don't message to men. It's true. They don't message to men at all. They don't have no idea how, even the men in the Democratic Party somehow have absolutely no functional idea of how to message to young men. Based on his agreement with what she just said, though, neither of them have any idea how to message to young men. You can acknowledge the fact that we don't message to young men all day. If you don't know how, it's freaking pointless.
Like we don't message in a way that resonates to men. Like something that you kind of
True.
responded to that I've seen a lot is, well, the reason why Republican messaging resonates with men is because men want bad things, right? It's like men want to have sex and like
I think he's highlighting something they do wrong. So far, I agree.
own women, right? Like they want to dominate everybody, and Republicans say you get to do that, and then
Yeah, see, that's not what Republicans say. I hope he's about to say that.
Democrats can't say that. So we just lost men. It's over, right? Like,
Mhm.
what are you talking about? Like,
Okay. He is acknowledging the problem. When we get back to solutions, he's going to make me angry again, but he is acknowledging one of the problems because that is crazy. That's not why men are moving to the right at all. It's not because they want to dominate women and control everything. That's absurd.
a lot of times it will be men that are liberals who will like agree with that shit. I'm like, dude, what are you like? What is going on? Like, we're
That's because liberal men have their own separate problems. Most of them. There are exceptions. There are certainly masculine liberal men.
there's a lot of men that don't think that way, obviously, and it's just such a negative view to take on like half of the human race.
Well, I
True. That sentence, divorced from everything else they've said, is true. That's an absurd way to look at half of the human race.
also think it's just so abundantly clear that the people who say these things don't actually spend time talking to young men.
I think they do. It's selection bias, though. I think they're definitely not talking to conservative men. That's for sure.
You know this because we know each other in real life, but I spend a lot of time on college campuses. And
okay. Where's she going with this?
And I spend
She
a lot of time
loves
with
young men.
I love young men.
Can you imagine if an adult male in this space, in this world, anywhere, said, I love young women the way they just said that? Can you imagine this is crazy. I can't believe they just like
I love frat guys.
can you imagine me saying, huh, I love young women. I spend so much time on college campuses. I love sorority girls. Can you imagine the backlash? That is a crazy thing to say. And oh my God, the disconnect is insane. This is why they hear you guys talking like this, knowing how it would seem the opposite way. This is why men are moving right. This is one of the reasons. You found one of the reasons. You haven't acknowledged it yet, but you found one.
And in that, I realized like even the ones that identify as conservative are almost always pro-choice. They're almost always pro-gay marriage. You'd be surprised at the number of them who supported Black Lives Matter. And so I feel like people just kind of lump them into this box when the truth is, again, a lot of them are with us on the issues. They're just
on some issues, but they're not actually, because the pro-choice conservative position is like 6 weeks, and the pro-choice Democrat position is until the day before they're born. The pro-LGBTQ conservative position is let adults do what they want and marry who they want. The pro-LGBT liberal position, or I would say progressive leftist position actually, is transition your children before they can even comprehend what that means. And let biological males dunk all over women in sports. And then what was the other one she said?
they're almost always pro gay marriage. You'd be surprised at the number of them who supported Black Lives Matter. It's so
That one I'll give her. Yeah. Most people are like, hey, the police are a little out of control. And there's some disproportionality to that, and they got to chill out. Anyone who's looked at the data would say that. So she got 1 out of 3.
and a lot of them are with us on the issues.
Kind
they're
of,
just
not really.
part of our coalition because they feel like they're not welcomed in it.
They're not talked to, right?
They're not welcome in it. They don't want to talk, though. They want to see you making sense, and then they'll just come over. They don't want to talk. Like,
Right. And yeah, they're not welcome. That's true. Like there's a lot of times where it's
that's true. They aren't welcome. It's literally ridiculous. You're like, you're only welcome if you fully feminize like your, not only like your aesthetic, your everything. You have to be fully on board or you're not welcome.
it's like being like masculine characteristics or seem like they're frowned upon and they're kind of welcomed and championed by the Republican Party. And like
Yeah, masculinity and femininity are championed by conservatives. Whereas their only femininity is championed by the left. And it obviously, yeah, they don't feel welcome.
masculine characteristics are not characteristics that are intrinsically bad, right? Like, and I think that some Democrats have presented it that way. Now, obviously not most Democrats, but it's like this perception that a lot of guys have had.
Well, it's the loudest, most progressives that present it that way. So that's who they see, because it's the loudest people are who everyone sees.
In terms of issues, like good messaging is messaging that resonates with people's actual anxieties and lived experience, right? And so, yeah, like the Whatever podcast can resonate with men that are like incels or like struggling with women, right? Because a girl was mean to them or whatever, and they're able to project upon like those women which come on and like look really dumb. They're able to say like, yeah, all women are like this. I feel better about myself.
I agree with him on that point. That is what the Whatever podcast does. They specifically choose for mostly less intelligent women. They do have intelligent women on there sometimes, and Brian has to scramble and use every last brain cell to try to dunk on them, and it doesn't really work. Kyla, for example, she always holds her own when she goes on there. But in general, yes, it does appeal to a very certain disgruntledness within certain men, and it like reinforces that disgruntledness when, like I say, and I always say, if you're feeling that way and you're resonating with podcasts like that, go outside and talk to women. I know it's difficult. I know you don't wanna. I know it's tough, but go outside, talk to women, have women as friends, do fun activities with groups of people, engage in regular person society. Not everyone is an OnlyFans model. Not everyone is a super radical leftist, far absurd feminist. It's just not the reality. Just take a deep breath, go outside and talk to women. Eventually, you'll get the hang of it. Eventually, people will want to include you and talk to you. It's not easy at first, but just do it. Just go outside. I'm begging you guys. Go outside and talk to real people. Okay? It's not that bad out there.
But there's all these other things that resonate probably more, which is like, man, shit's expensive, right? Like,
That is true. There is an aspect of the economy that swayed people's votes. That's not the only thing. That's what swayed the general population's votes more to the right. It is not what swayed specifically men. It was a factor for everybody.
man, I don't feel supported, right? Like, I don't feel like there's anywhere for me to go, right? I feel like if something bad happens to me, no one's there to support me. That's the thing.
That's true for men who are trying to be on the left. They don't feel like there's any kind of support for them or any kind of anything for them. There's just nothing for them here, is basically how they feel. And the way it looks, the way the loudest people are behaving, that's kind of a reasonable assumption.
Thing that a lot of men deal with, because men are a lot of times kind of put in the box of supporting other people, so no one's there to support themselves. And it's like, those are things that we can absolutely talk to. Actually, we could probably speak to better than the Republican Party.
Yeah, I think speaking to that is also...
Well, you aren't, and that's the problem. You aren't speaking to it better. They don't want to be spoken to, or they don't want to talk. They want to see you actually doing something better, and then they'll come over naturally if they resonate with that. Right now, they don't resonate with what they're seeing. And so you could talk to them all day until you're blue in the face. Unless they're looking at the mainstream liberal ideology, they're not, and resonating with it, they're not coming over. It's that simple.
So understanding the mentality that they're coming from too. So another example is when you look at the polling of what are the issues that are the most important to young men, one of the top issues consistently is immigration. If you actually talk to a young guy about how he feels about immigration, am I allowed to cuss on this?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about immigration. It's this idea of scarcity and competition.
Well, no, they care about illegal immigration and people who are secretly here, not engaging with the system the way that they are forced to engage from the system with the system, because they have social security numbers. And so they have to engage with the system because the government knows where they are and tracks them and taxes them and all of this other stuff. So she's like almost has a point here, but not quite.
Of if you're a young man in America, you are expected to go to college or go to a trade school, get a certification, get a degree. Then you're expected to get a high-paying job. And then once you get your high-paying job, you're expected to find your wife and to buy a house and to have kids and to do all of these things. And if you don't do that, then you're a failure because you are the man and you are the provider. And if you can't provide, then you're not actually a man. And so we set the Republicans specifically, they set this expectation and then they make it almost impossible for young men to actually do those things.
It's not conservatives that are setting the expectation. All of human history, until very recently, that's been the expectation. That's the expectation from most liberals. That's the expectation. To go on one side and say the perceived crisis of masculinity, and then to right on the other hand say there is a crisis of masculinity because men aren't able to be providers anymore, which is obviously contributing to this. That's just crazy to me. How do you come to both conclusions at the same time?
Whether it's through not raising minimum wage, whether it's through the price of tuition going up, all these different things. And so what ends up happening is you have these young guys who they're working every single day. They're working on oil rigs, they're working at Amazon warehouses, maybe they work a 9-to-5 job. They're working every single day and they're still not getting ahead. So then we force young men to make this decision of either you can blame yourself or you can blame others. And if you're a young guy and you're working 8 to 12 hours a day, if you're paying all your bills, you're doing everything you can, and you're still not getting ahead, why do we expect them to think that they're the problem? They're doing everything that they've been told to do their entire life. And so that kind of little nagging, insecure voice in the back of the head, that's where Republicans really push through that ideology and get to young men, is because then
No, 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 no. It's because when they look left, the loudest people are saying crazy things like you are right now. That's why. It has nothing to do with them poking and prodding at the economic crisis. That is not, oh, no.
they can convince them, well, this is the person whose fault it is. It's not your fault that you can't get ahead in America. It's the immigrants who are coming here. It's their fault because they're taking your high-paying jobs.
Right. And this hits on something that's
Our unemployment is like negligent. Nobody, this just isn't true.
so true. It's not that people
It's so not true.
are intrinsically prejudiced against immigrants. I mean, certainly some people are, but most people are not. The critical mass of Americans that say they care about immigration are not. It's that Republicans have made immigration an economic issue. They made it an everything issue. I mean, they point to immigrants and they say, these are the people that are taking away your livelihood.
They keep saying immigration. They don't care about immigration. They care about illegal immigration. How do you not understand this?
The safety of your family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like, that's a lie. It's a vicious lie, but it's a lie that you can perhaps understand people believing if they have no other explanations offered to them. And I think there's something else about this that's really insightful. It's men are looking for an explanation about why things kind of suck in their lives, right? And so if you look at a lot of the content that men like watch, well, some of it's, this right-wing content. A lot of it's like self-help stuff, right? Like, who's the most into self-help? It's
Healthy gamer, shout out. True, you do need to stop being a simp. All of you, stop being simps. Thank you, doctor. This is a based video I've seen for sure. Definitely based.
men. And what does the self-help say? It's your mind, it's your thought process that's the reason why things suck, right?
It is. Now, it's not the individual's fault necessarily that their mind and their thought process are at fault for their outcomes in life. It has a lot to do with the very broad social and cultural pressures that we all have received over the last 50 to 100 years that are a massive change from the way we interacted for thousands of years. And we've implemented all this stuff in such a nonsensical and absurd way that no one knows what to do with it. So, for example, we threw women into the workforce, which was okay, but we didn't actually continue reinforcing the importance of families and procreation. We just liberated ourselves from everything, even the good stuff. And when you do that, you leave whole swaths of people with no idea what to do in life. But I would, thank you for these two for making a whole bunch more conservatives, because whatever men who are on the fence watch this video, adios, they went right.
And some of the people are even always eager to blame someone else. They're just eager to have an explanation, a solution to the suffering they're facing in their lives.
I had a really
You're not providing that.
in-depth conversation a few weeks ago with some other content creators where I was
Oh,
talking
boy.
about the messaging that the Democratic Party uses so often, and we talk about the diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, and I think where we've kind of fallen into this trap is we have made the party exclusive by trying to make it inclusive. And what I mean by that is every room we walk into, the messaging that we're using is different. Every single one of them. And I think that that's the wrong way to go about it. I think we should have one specific.
You aren't doing that. That's the problem. That's the problem. Your messaging to other liberals is the exact same stuff that these other guys are seeing. It's all exactly the same. How would you think? Oh my God, how could you literally, how could she think that that's true? That's not even in the ballpark of true. What is, did I slip into a different reality here? Have I lost my mind? Is she in a different what are they all telling each other when they have these meetings? What could they possibly be telling each other when they have these meetings? They just sit there and cope to each other about why it's all going so poorly? Because that's what it sounds like. Because that's not happening. That's just not happening. The furthest left, most progressive talking points are the ones that are turning these guys to the right. It's not the different way that you talk to them. It's because you don't talk to them in a different way. How did they come to this conclusion? I don't understand.
Specific, this is the message we use on this issue, because people are going to interpret that message however they want to interpret it. Everyone has their own form of cultural competency. So, and I think what Trump in particular is they kind of just say the same thing over and over again. And then if they ever change their opinion on it, they just say it with so much confidence that it's hard to convince people that that's not what they meant. So for us, I think it's just, we should just be saying the same thing about the same issue over and over and over again, and let the voters decide what it means through their own cultural lens instead of telling them specifically what we mean every single time.
Right.
I have no idea what she thinks she just said. I have no idea. She just said nothing. Categorical nothing. That last sentence right there, she just said nothing.
The issue with pandering is it looks like you're pandering.
That sentence on its own is true. That is the issue with pandering. You can't pander. You have to actually provide actual reasons for men to want to go left again. Because pandering, anyone can see right through that, and they know you're being full of crap. If you're pandering, you're full of shit. Like, that's what pandering is. You're basically pretending to get people to, you're like, oh yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that, we're totally with you. Unless you really are, no one's gonna believe that.
You don't seem genuine whenever you're saying something different in two different rooms with different demographics in them. Even if you are being genuine, but sometimes it's just not, right? Like
I don't understand where they think they're doing this, because they're not doing this. Everyone can hear everything they're saying in every room. I don't know what they think they're on about here at all.
Kamala Harris's agenda for black men. I don't think that really went anywhere because it just seems so kind of contrived. It seems so
Well,
like,
it was just so, and this is the same thing. It's the same thing that Hillary Clinton did, where it's Bill, like, you'll have people on the right throughout these claims of like, well, what are you doing for this group? And we'll have these long-winded like explanations with these details and these figures, and then we can go out and talk about it so we're blue in the face. But at that point, the conversation's already moved on because they didn't actually care about the answer. They cared about how they felt about the answer. And so I feel like we just get into these specific.
They care about both. Your answer was bad and your vibes were bad. It's both. It's both things.
So frequently that frankly, like, people just don't care about.
but we need simple ideas that you articulate all the time, right? So like, for instance, build more housing, right? And somebody says, well, how does that benefit this group? It's like, well, do you live in housing? Like there's
That was a good one. They should have ran with that a lot more. They should have pushed all the extra crap out of the view and stuck with that and meant it.
some big economic issues that hit everybody. Affordability is one of the most central ones. And that's something that we should champion. And the good news is it helps everyone, right? It's not just good policy all the time, but it's also like we don't need to have different messages for different groups, in large part because there isn't different policy solutions for different groups. Like
Yeah, but they aren't having different. You aren't doing that. I agree with him that that is something good that they should push, that they should be focused on. But I don't know why they keep thinking that they're saying different things to different groups. Everyone can hear everything you're saying to every group.
targeted policies are usually ones that are kind of watered down, right? They're kind of less, like increasing funding for specific grant programs for certain races of businesses. I mean, that's great and all, and we've had that for a long time, but that's not going to fix the big economic inequality and opportunity issues we have in this country. The only thing that could do that is dramatic investments, is a huge expansion of the social support system, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the kind of stuff that we should probably focus on talking about.
Oh God, you got to be really careful when you talk about that, though. You got to be really careful, not just when you talk about it, the actual policy that you're talking about. You have to be really careful with how you structure that, because to make the broad term social safety, whatever, appealing to conservatives is extremely tricky. It's very tricky. And it can't just be the way you're saying it. It has to actually be the product has to be something palatable to them. I highly doubt that's your plan. Ugh.
Yeah.
I knew this video was going to make me angry. I knew it. I just knew it. I knew it. I called it.
You look at things like, the healthcare plan, or, homeowners, like first time loans up to this amount or this percentage. I need Democrats to start talking like, well, what's your healthcare policy? My healthcare policy is healthcare should be good and cheap.
right. Because Trump does. He doesn't explain like, I'm going to do price transparency, like a price statute, and I'm going to expand the premium tax credit, whatever. Like,
no.
Republicans never say the word tax credit. Why do we say the word tax credit all the time?
I think it's because like we're still operating in this like fallout of Reagan, Bill Clinton mentality. But the difference is that most Democrats don't have the charisma that Bill Clinton had.
That's true. He had too much riz, though. Way too much riz.
And so instead of leaning on the charisma, they lean on the details. And I just don't.
Yeah, the details are bad, though. Like, it's good ideas with horrible execution. So when the details are right, that's when you get people to your side. It's the details. It's a combination of the vibes and the details. You have to have both.
I don't think it translates the same way. We just come off as a bunch of dorks. Like that's
true. Cringe lord dorks. Especially the two of you.
It's just the truth. We just come off as a bunch of dorks.
Right.
Nobody wants to listen to a
So
dork.
I think voters
True. She is correct. She is just misidentifying who's the dorks.
like people they think are smart, but they don't like people that they don't understand, right? They want to feel like they understand what you're saying and it's smart, not just like I don't understand what they're saying, therefore they're smart, right? And they also like simple solutions, right? Like we don't need to talk about each detail of each healthcare policy.
Yeah, the average voter prefers simple explanations of things with simple solutions to their problems. That sentence all by itself is correct.
We can just say, like you said, what we're going to do, right? And you can tell people the basic details about how you're going to do it, but you don't need to really get in the weeds. And you also don't need to talk about 20 things at once. I think that's part of the issue with the Democratic coalition. The Republican coalition is like, we want border security, tax cuts, whatever. There's like 5 things that they actually care about. And then there's minor things. And for the Democrats, it's like, well, we're really diverse, actually. We want a lot of different things, but we need to learn to prioritize because not every issue deserves to be brought into the spotlight just for any reason. Whenever you go to a door as a Democrat and you knock on the door to talk to a voter about the things that your party supports, they should already know what those things are. If they don't, that means that you're not doing a good job messaging. If you go to somebody and you ask them, what does Trump support? They're going to be able to list at least 2 things, probably. They can't list anything for Kamala Harris. $30,000 home buyer tax credit, whatever. No, there's 0% chance they can list anything because there's just so many ideas and they're all so contrived.
Well, and the other problem is her whole position was aside from those couple of little things was just like Biden part 2. And nobody wanted to hear that. Nobody wanted to hear Biden part 2 is coming to town. That's just not what anyone wanted to hear at all.
No, that's not true. They'll say that she supports sex changes for transgender illegal aliens.
When the loudest progressives are saying that you should give your kids HRT before they can even walk, yeah, that's what conservatives are going to associate with the party. When you allow that shit out into the mainstream the way we have, that's what they're going to think. Obviously.
It's in prison.
A very a center of her platform, yes.
It was a central part of her platform. Yeah, I mean, it's just the same thing over and over again. It's kind of like, guys, what are we doing here? I think of it as America or voters in general, when they're deciding who they want to vote for, they want a mom and they want a dad. Not to be homophobic, because there can be, same-sex parents here. But they want a mom and a dad. They want someone who, in times of uncertainty, can bring them comfort and can make them feel like there's someone there for them. And then they also want someone who's going to be stern, who's going to have their back, and who's going to say the tough things that need to be said. And I feel like we try to offer voters comfort, but instead of coming across as like mom or dad, we kind of come across as like the aunt who you kind of don't like her, but she gets you really good Christmas presents. So like every once in a while you'll go visit. Like I feel like that's kind of how we come across as like, well, I don't really trust the Democrats and I don't really like them that much, but the Affordable Care Act was cool. And like that's kind of the extent of it.
No. That is not the perception. I don't even feel like I need to explain that one. That's obviously not the perception at all.
Of it is how people feel about us most of the time.
No.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the family theory of partisan politics in the United States.
I knew that video was going to make me angry. I knew it was going to make me angry.